Welcome to the Dwayne Kerrigan Podcast, and I'm your host, Dwayne Kerrigan. With 35 years in business and close to 30 ventures across 12 industries, I've seen a lot. Amid the celebrity allure of entrepreneurship, many exceptional entrepreneurs remain shadowed. Here, I team up with these hidden talents to unveil their challenges and successes. Dive in with me to unearth entrepreneurial gems, learn from our experiences, and get educated. I don't even know how to start this podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, I have like a dear, like my heart has so much fondness for you. Margaret Bélanger, who, you know, I think the least descriptive thing for you is like you're the, president of operations and entertainment for the Montreal Canadiens.
That's right.
But that doesn't even come close to explaining who you are as an individual, who you are as a leader, who you are as a person, as a mom, as a role model for, well, any person in business. Forget about gender, but you are an unbelievable role model for women. I've never told you this story, but I remember when the first time I was, we met.
I remember vividly.
In the group. But I remember beforehand, I'm not going to say who it was, but one of the people also in the room said, and this was prior to you coming in, was, oh my God, like France is joining the group. She is so inspiring, and her grace and just, who she is her femininity and grace are going to blow you away. And I certainly have not been disappointed. And I remember the first time I met you and, you started speaking and how you show up and who you are as a person. I went, man, my wife is going to love you. and you met her for the first time today.
That's right,
and
that's
hopefully we get to spend some time together.
Hopefully, yes.
But anyways, sorry, for the listeners for the long, winded and very unstructured opening to this podcast. But this is, to me, not just a normal conversation. This is a conversation with somebody who I really appreciate, love, respect, and have a tremendous amount of fondness for who you are as a person and what you've accomplished.
Anyway, such a great pleasure for me, Dwayne, to be finally here. I know we've talked about sitting down together for a while now, and now finally here we are today in Montreal, right before a game, getting to sit down in this little studio, which is quite cozy. And you're raising the bar quite high when you describe everything you just said about me. But anyways, I'm just so happy to find you again, because we've had a chance to spend quite a bit of time together over the past few years. And then it stopped because for various reasons. And I'm so happy. Yeah, and we're back. And I'm so happy to be able to spend time with you. As I told you, secretly too, in those various meetings we used to have with the group, I said that to you, the last time we spoke, I would take notes about sentences that you would say, because they were so meaningful to me, and they so resonate, and they were so helpful in the bigger scheme of things, not just about like some specific things about business or something, but just stuff that very much inspired me, that I have my little notes, and I take notes once in a while, and there's a lot of sentences that you've actually pronounced that are in that little book. And then I've got the chance and the privilege to be back with you, and I'm so happy.
Well, thank you for that. That's very nice of you to say, coming from somebody you put on a pedestal, and to hear that back. Thank you. Thank you for that. I'm going to give the audience a little structure here. So, sorry guys. So France started as a lawyer, 18 years, partner, mostly focusing on mergers and acquisitions. And then 2013, you come to the Montreal Canadiens, this legendary, iconic sports brand in not just Quebec, but in Canada, in North America, within the NHL. I mean, it's unbelievable what this brand represents in
Yeah,
the
it's a
in the
significant,
industry.
yeah, for sure. First team actually preceding the league, created in 1909. So yes, a definitely recognizable brand in North America for sure.
Yeah, it's crazy. So privileged to be here. 2013, you become the SVP and chief of legal office. And then 2017, you become the EVP and chief commercial officer. There's a theme here. 2020, you take on the entertainment group side of it, because there's not just hockey, but there's also, you have a big entertainment business.
Yeah, it's called Evenco. That's right.
Yeah. And then in 2021, you become the president of operations, sports entertainment, the whole kit and caboodle. Yeah. Yeah. Mind blowing. You were, so I actually, I looked this up. I mean, I know you obviously, but I thought I better look this stuff up but you are regarded as one of the most powerful women in Canadian sport. And that's quite a title. You're also now, do I have this correct? Are you now one of the co-owners of the new Toronto WNBA team, the Tempo?
That's right.
Yeah, that's unbelievable.
What a privilege. Yeah, it's a great opportunity. Yeah.
Congratulations.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
It's beyond cool.
Yeah, it's quite cool.
You're also, I guess I should also say, you're an alternate governor for the board on the NHL.
Yeah, the board of governors of the NHL. That's right.
The NHL.
Yeah, that's right.
You're also on the NHL Inclusive Council, right? Executive Inclusive Council. There's probably a million things I missed, but I just kind of wanted to give this high scope of, like, guys, France is a baller.
It's a description of the various roles I've got and various things I was able to do. But yeah, most importantly, this is a great job for me, and it's really, I have, we're a team of 500 people. Like, when people think about the Montreal Canadiens, people think about the team on the ice, right? 23 players, our coach, our GM, our president of hockey ops. But in the end, behind all that, there's just a whole group of people from the commercial point that are actually making all of this possible, both on the hockey front and also on the entertainment side with the large company we've got, which is called Evenco and Spectra. These are two businesses that are sort of evolving in the entertainment side of the business. Mm-hmm. And through Evenco and Spectra, we do between 1,600 and 1,700 events per year. So it could be a show at the Bell Centre, it could be a festival, it could be shows across the province of Quebec. So there's a lot there, and there's a big team of people that are behind all of that we're doing. And it's great that I get to lead that.
Okay, so you have 500 on the hockey side.
Actually, the overall business is 500.
500,
both
even on
hockey,
the entertainment.
Yeah, it's all. Yeah, it's a big number, but mm-hmm. we're known to be very lean. Like, I can rely on a bunch of people that are super good in their own areas of expertise. Like, I have an amazing booking side on the Evenco side. I have an amazing commercial and sales side on the hockey side. I mean, all groups are great, like amazing legal, amazing HR. Like, I have to say amazing everything because I don't want to forget any one of these groups, but great finance group, great. I mean, every single person that are here, I have to say we can just count on the best. And I've got the great privilege with our owner, Jeff Molson, who's trusting me to run this business for him. And that's what I've been doing.
Okay, I'm a little actually blown away at the 500 number because, this is a massive operation.
Yeah, it's a big group.
And I think about, you have 500 people. I think we have about 450, yeah. And I'm about 1/100th of the size of what you guys have going on, yeah. And it just shows how bad of a businessman I am. I need that many employees to turn this little amount of revenue, but you guys, that's amazing. Well, it's really amazing.
So it's 500 permanent people, yes. But every time. So tonight we're gonna have a hockey game at the Bell Centre, and so over and above the 500 that we work here every day in and out, we're gonna have probably another 1,400 coming just for the event, right? And that is like security, ushers, like people working the concessions, people working in our restaurants. So we have the people managing the ice. So there's about 1,400 people, between 1,300 and 1,400 people coming to a game as an event employee. They're showing up here at around 3, 4-ish, and then they're going to leave at the end of the game, making sure that tonight we're going to be able to host 21,000 people at the Bell Center.
Right. Okay.
So that's over and above.
Okay.
Like
And are those
yeah.
all part-time then?
Yeah, they're part-time. Yeah, we call them the event employees. So every event they're going to show up, and they have a specific role to play for us, so that we can run things smoothly here.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Focus on what's going on the ice.
Okay.
Yeah.
So with everything you have going on, where do you want to start? I would love to start where you'd like to start, or whatever.
I follow your guide. I'm here as your guest. So as I said, you convinced me to be here. Now I'm here, and then we can start wherever you want. We can start wherever you want.
Let's start. We're talking about the entertainment business and the hockey operation. So let's talk a little bit about. I'm actually, one of the things that I'm curious about as you were talking about this, and you jumped from lawyer, mergers and acquisitions, into this iconic brand, and I don't know if you played hockey when you were younger, or
I can barely skate. It's embarrassing. No.
You can't even skate.
I can barely skate. I mean, I can skate barely. I mean, I can skate, but I don't know how to stop. So I have to stop into like a board or into someone that I grab in a hope that this person will stop me, because I don't know how to stop.
Yeah.
So that's a bit of a problem. So no, I've never played hockey. I mean, the way it all started is that I'm a lawyer at Stikeman Elliott, and this is 2001.
Mm-hmm.
All right, and then. This is like old story, but George Gillette, who then is a businessman in the U.S. based in Colorado, he's in the ski business and in the media business. He's about to buy the Montreal Canadiens, and I'm at Stikeman Elliott, and a senior partner there, his name is Pierre Raymond, gets a phone call from a Chicago law firm called Winston and Strawn. And basically, they're calling Pierre to say, hey, we've got this client of ours. His name is George Gillette, and he wants to buy the Montreal Canadiens. And this is something based in Montreal. So you, as a firm based in Montreal, would you help us, the Chicago firm? And so obviously, then we took the mandate. And back in 2001, I was lucky enough for Pierre Raymond to actually pick up the phone and ask me to do this dossier with him. And back then, I'm a like five-year experienced lawyer. So, I mean, I'm kind of chasing the paper. I'm trying to put those agreements together. So we did that. We represented George Gillette going from January of 2001. The closing took place, so it was July 24 and 26. It was a 2-day closing, 24, 26 of July in 2001. And then we've got this client now who's based in the U.S. who now owns the Montreal Canadiens. And he's a client of Stikeman Elliott. So from that moment on, I started to do all the legal work for the firm. I would represent whenever they had, because they didn't have anyone internal here at the Montreal Canadiens. So every time there was a question, whatever it was, with the NHL or what, they'd call Stikeman, and I was sort of the go-to person because I had done the entire deal. And I also, my pay rate was less expensive than a senior partner, so I would often get those calls, just, remind me this and how does it work and so on. So I did that. And so I became quite close to the Montreal Canadiens organization that was owned by George Gillette at the time. And then in 2009, Mr. Gillette sold the team. And fast forward to from 2001 to 2009, I'm a much more experienced lawyer. Then I'm actually a partner of the firm. And so I ran that sale, essentially. Pierre Raymond, the senior guy, was still involved, but I pretty much ran, it was an auction process. We received bids from many different parties, Canadian parties, US parties. And in the end, we ended up selling to Jeff Molson and the ownership group that Jeff had put together. And that transaction closed on December 1st, 2009. Now, I'm still at Stikeman Elliott, but I was the one negotiating, representing the seller, Mr. Gillette, to the acquisition group led by Jeff Molson. And so Jeff and that group saw me negotiate somehow against them, representing my own client. Right. And then usually in these large transactions, there's sort of money that is being withheld to certify the reps and warranties, because as a seller, you give a bunch of reps and warranties on the status of the business. And so there was a bunch of money set aside just to support, if something had proved to be false or whatever. And so you still have your client, despite the fact that the deal was done, the business was transferred to Mr. Molson and his group of owners. I was still with Stikeman Elliott representing George Gillette for the duration of the reps and warranties sort of guarantee, which was a full year. Right. So fast. So a whole year? It's a full year, yeah. It's pretty standard. Yeah. And so then in December of 2010, everything got released, everything was done. And so at that point, our mandate was officially over at Stikeman Elliott. So then shortly thereafter, I called Jeff Molson and I said, you should give you should give us back the business at Stikeman Elliott. We know all the, we know this inside out, like the whole tax structure behind. We've been doing this since 2001. We have all the relationship with the NHL. There's no better firm, frankly, than us to continue with you and help you move on with all the different things that are ongoing, because we've been doing this since 2001. And sure enough, he gave me that very day 3 mandates. He said, okay. And so somehow he got convinced. And then that very day we had lunch together. And then that afternoon, he shipped back 3 mandates to Stikeman Elliott. And then we started to work again for the group. Afterwards, he called me and he said, why don't you join us? And at first I said no, because there was a lot of movements in my life. There was a lot of stuff going on the personal front. And I thought that it was a bit too complex to start. I love Stikeman Elliott, fantastic firm. This is where I've learned everything, frankly. This is where my network started in Montreal. I'm not from Montreal. At the very outset, there's always a connection to Stikeman Elliott in everything I started to do. And so I was like, I'm not ready to leave the firm, and it was complex. So I said no, believe it or not. And then 6 months after, he said, okay, we're trying again. Are you joining us this time? And then by that time, things were stable on my personal front. And then I said yes. And then I joined the team at the end of 2013. So in the fall of 2013, I joined the firm. And so that's really how it started, buying the Canadiens, selling the Canadiens, including the building and the whole entertainment business also at the time, and knowing everything about the firm, really. I call it the firm, everything about the organization, and knowing a bunch of people also. Like I knew the CFO, Fred Steer, extremely well. I knew Jeff, kind of well, and I knew all these other executives that were here at the time. And so that's how it happened.
Okay, so I have a question,
Long-winded
so thank you for sharing, because there's interesting, because there's a whole bunch of pieces that I'd love to pull from this, from what you've just said. I do want to say one thing before I ask a couple of questions. A little birdie told me one time that one of the reasons why Jeff had asked you to come on board was because of how well you negotiated on the other side.
I think so.
And how, it was and I've often said to myself, just from spending time with you, is and in my introduction, I said, you show up with so much grace. And and we'll get to this later, I'm sure, but in business, you've been able to maintain this beautiful level of femininity. And I've obviously never had to negotiate with you. And I can't imagine doing it, because I feel like there's a part, it's like, oh boy, so that's what, but I just wanted to acknowledge that, you did, it was a great, the story was awesome, but I also heard that you were so excellent and such an amazing negotiator that he was like, we got to have that girl on our team.
We should ask him if really that's what it is. But I mean, at Stikeman Elliott, those large Canadian firms, especially in my area of expertise, doing corporate work and then mergers and acquisition. A merger and an acquisition is a negotiation. You either merge 2 companies, you either sell one, you buy one. And I think that obviously it's, you need to know the law and you need to know how to sort of maneuver around that. But the whole negotiation part of those contracts is key. You might draft the best contract possible, but then when you show up at the negotiation table, if you're not able to kind of argue your point, so try to set aside what you really want to get at the end of the day and what is not that important, and mix the two and try to land where you want to land. And so this was such an amazing school for me, and I've learned, I think, from the best. There's unbelievable lawyers at Stikeman Elliott. There were, and there still are, amazing lawyers, and it's all in the art of negotiation and understanding how you get to where you want and focusing on what's important. And so that I was able to go to that school, and I love that. That's the part of the job that I love the most is the whole negotiation. I love it.
Can you share with us, I would love personally to learn, what are the what are the things that you learned the most, that as you kind of started in your career, because you said at the very beginning, 2001, you're only in for 5 years, you're a junior lawyer, you're learning, and you've negotiated hundreds of millions of dollars, billions of dollars in deals. What are some of the things that you would say, like, these are the key components to learn or to know in negotiation?
Well, I mean, again, it's stuff that I've learned along the way, but it's stuff that I was told. And again, like I don't want I want to emphasize how important it was to be learning with the best, like some of the smartest lawyers at Stikeman Elliott along the way, and it's to show up ready. Like there's no way around it, right? If you want to, if either you're buying or you're selling, you need to know your dossier inside out. If you're selling the business, you need to know this business that you're selling inside out. You need to know exactly what your client wants you to do, and you need to be the best prepared at the table all the time, and that's a lot of work. And hopefully, people are willing to put in the hours and to show up ready. But and also when you show up ready, I mean, you're super confident, right? Because there's no such thing as, oh my God, I kind of cut the corner a bit here and I'm not too sure about that area that I'm about to talk. There's none of that. You show up, you're ready, you're prepared. So you're fully confident, you're calm, you're relaxed. And also, so that's one thing, how you show up. I mean, and I hopefully I do that in everything I do. That's really what I've learned, and not only from Stikeman Elliott, but from my family and all that. Show up ready, just and then be at your best. And also in negotiation, if you talk all the time, you don't have time to listen to what the other one is saying. So it's listening. Because I mean, I know what I want showing up, but like what is it that the other party wants? And if I talk all the time, I'm never going to be able to understand really what is it that they want, what's important to them. So sometimes maybe there's a tendency for people to talk and to monopolize the conversation, but at the end of the day, you need to understand that it's key to know what is it that they want. You need to understand what they want, and so let them talk, and then go with the flow. And if you're prepared, then you can go with the flow. And also, you cannot try to leave a table winning absolutely everything, because it's not going to work. Like, people are smart also on the other side of the table. So what is it that you really want? I mean, maybe there's 10 items on the line. Maybe there's 10 points on your piece of paper. There are 10 things that you'd like to get, but what are the must-haves versus the nice-to-have? And as long as you leave with the must-haves at the end of the day, and the nice-to-have, you can let them, it's not that important. So, but again, it's not that I've not created that. I've not invented that. It's just by listening to these guys at Stikeman and just trying to mimic. And again, it's a firm where very, very early on you're thrown into like the thick of it. Like, it's a firm known to be. I mean, I'm sure my fellow Stikeman Elliott people that are still there might not like how I refer to it, but like, as a student in university, they were saying that Stikeman Elliott is a bit of a sink or swim type of firm. Like, you either figure it out or it's not going to work. Yeah. And some people like that. Some people don't like that. It's not for everyone. But and I think I mean, there's a lot of guardrails, and there's a lot of education, and there's a lot of training. So it's not that true, like the sink or swim, but I guess it's the other way, swim or sink. But anyways, preferably, I guess. But in the end, like, it's you just have to, and it's the repetition, right? Repeating it, and then it's losing some of negotiation. Like, you leave the boardroom and you're like, my God, it was not that good. But with time, it's repetition, and it's fun.
It is fun, actually. You're right. It is so much fun. I just want to circle back to a couple of the points. So you'd said be the best prepared at the table. Oh, yeah. Listening, go with the flow, which I think was really interesting, comment. And then knowing that you can't win at everything. But going back to being the best prepared, like, we have listeners that have businesses anywhere from $1 million to $50 million. Mm-hmm. 38% of our listeners are women. When you talk about, like, and there's people right now that I know who are listeners, I know they're selling their businesses because, they communicate with us. We get feedback. We hear from our listeners quite a bit. But when you say prepare, like, get prepared, what does that mean? What are the key pieces that you need to know, and that, your team needs to know, whether it's your lawyers, your accountants, that you're working with? Like, what is that how would you define that statement of preparedness?
I think it's how could I say this? I think it's kind of it's I would never, okay, in this, let's just bring it to this brand, okay? I would never show up somewhere, be it to a meeting or to a negotiation or at the board of governors, without knowing what is it that we're about to talk, or knowing, like, if it's a negotiation or if it's a conversation, or if it's just the board of governors where, the commissioner Gary Bettman will tell us about, like, the state of the league or what, because I owe it to this organization to represent it as best I can. But no one tells me to do that. It's just who I am. And so that is in the current state of things. But, like, back at Stikeman Elliott, even more so then, like, here someone is hiring me to do the job I'm doing. But back then I had clients hiring me and paying me by the hour just to represent them in a boardroom, just to make sure that I was representing their interests to the best of my ability. So you're not going to let anyone down, and you're not going to be, and maybe there's some people that are better than me at different things, right? Like in certain areas, perhaps there was someone who knew more than me in tax law, or in, I don't know, like other different areas of expertise. But it's to show up and to know that I'm confident because I will have done the work. Like, it never occurred to me to not do what was necessary when I had to show up somewhere. Like, be it because I was representing a client at Stikeman, or be it now that I'm representing the brand. Even more so now that I'm fully representing the brand. So, and obviously now with experience, I mean, my preparation remains the same, but maybe it's a bit faster, right? Because, I mean, what I've learned over the years, hopefully I don't have to learn it every time I show up. Like, is the accumulation of all the hours. I mean, that's what experience is, right? Like, it's all the hours, all the different wins and loss that you've encountered over, like, during, like, I guess, along the way, that makes you who you are. But and surrounding yourself with the best too, because I cannot control everything, that you were 500 here. So, but when I show up somewhere, and is it to negotiate whatever it is, or to have a conversation with whomever it is, it's just to make sure that I show up with the best people in their area of expertise that will complement me, actually, when we show up somewhere. So it's not to be afraid to be surrounded also by the best. I don't have to be the best at the table if I've got the best on my side. Mm-hmm. Like, I'm going to be prepared. I'm going to know what I'm talking about. And we're going to be confident that we're ready and we're willing to have whatever conversation we're supposed to have, because we're confident.
So here are the three things that I gleaned from it. And please correct me if I captured them wrong, or I just want to, like, just kind of re-clarify them. But the first one I kind of took out was know your outcome. Like, when you're walking into something, like when you talked about the Gary Bettman, like, you're going into the board of governors, you got to know what's going on. You know what you have to know the pulse. You need to know what your outcome is. You need to know the goal or the direction that you're working towards. And what is it that I'm, like, what information that I want, that I think he might be talking about, that I'm going to try to, catch when he brings us, like, exactly knowing what is it that you want from whatever you're about to do. Yeah. And then the second was, and these aren't necessarily in order, but the second one, big one that I took away was, like, the stacking of experience. And I think, like, as you were saying it, I reflect to, like, my younger days, or people that I know who are, don't necessarily have an experience in, selling a business or negotiating a big deal or whatever that looks like. But it's like, you put in the work early, and it's, 10 times harder at the beginning. And now when you stack experience, and the more you do it, then it just gets easier and probably less work, because you have that experience on your side. No doubt. And that, which led to the second thing that I wrote down was, and I think your words were, surround yourself with the best, which is, if you haven't done it before, leverage people who have, so that because they can predict the road ahead. Sure. They've driven it's like playing a video game, right? You walk in and you're playing with it, your kids, or, your nephew or whatever, like, and you, like, start this, and it's a shooting game or a driving game. It's like, they're like, left turn, right turn, left turn, right turn. And you're like through the wall, and it's like, well, they know the turns were coming, right? They know the road ahead. And so if you can leverage, inside your, even if you have to hire it, but if you can leverage inside your group or hire the people who have seen the road ahead.
Always working with the best. I mean, and again, to me, it's essential in everything we do.
When you were talking about listening, I wrote down, like, what's your questioning strategy? Because, like, sometimes when you're in everybody in the negotiation is trying to hear what the other person wants to, like, that's pretty much in every negotiation book ever written, right? Which is like, listen, and some people have a hard time with it. But what do you have a questioning strategy that allows you to open the conversation, and then allow you to kind of sit back and listen to what they're looking for?
No, I don't think there's a cookie cutter thing that I use. But I mean, what's interesting is that there's not only what people, I mean, obviously everyone knows that, but there's not only what people say, right? It's how they are, what they're going to do, what they're doing with their hands, like how they're showing up. Like, again, like it's more like on the sphere of psychology now, but like it's everything. And sometimes, where I'm going to show up with a colleague to some conversation. And then what's interesting is that it's just to notice. This is if I'm the one who's the least active. Obviously, if I'm the one carrying the conversation, sometimes like you focus more on listening and trying to understand what's going on. But let's say I'm in a meeting with our owner, Mr. Molson. Like, let's say he's doing the conversation. Like, for me, it's to observe what's going on, who's doing what, like what happened. Like, it's so interesting. There's so many more like level to a meeting than just listening to the words that the person is saying or are, like, there's so much more than that. And it's to try to pick up on everything else, actually.
Yeah, it's funny when you say that. Like, we do that. Tennille and I do that all the time. Like, if I'm hosting a meeting, and I'm the one that's kind of presenting and doing the talking or whatever, or we're doing a group share, all that kind of stuff, she'll position herself in a seat, where she is seeing the room, and then afterwards I'll be like, okay, what did you see? It's usually the first thing we talk about is, what did you see? Yeah,
because there's so much more going on, right? So much more going on. And it's like, en tout cas, so obviously each conversation, each meeting is very different from one another, but it's very, very, very revealing, that too. So I don't know.
Yeah, no, this is good for people to hear. Like, I'm curious, like you talked about like the body language, I put down tonality, you said, what are they doing with their hands? Where are their eyes darting to? Who are they looking at? Because you say something and you look at someone and you're like, okay, that's the person making that decision.
Exactly. Or like, did you see the reaction when, you said that, there was like, there's so much that you can pick up. Sometimes people are not like, and sometimes you've got experts in front of you and you're never going to see anything, right? But sometimes it's not the case. So,
did you study any of that stuff? Like
zero.
Psychology? Zero?
Zero.
Well, your awareness, right?
I am. Yeah, I think I'm very, very, very aware of all that. Yeah, I observe a lot.
Where did you get that?
Because I think, again, I'm kind of a broken record with Stikeman Elliott, but there's two things here. First of all, at the start of a career as a young attorney, you don't know much, right? But in those large firms, like those big firms, usually what they do is that, I was brought along, like, so the senior guy would go into some conversation, but then like I'm tagging along, I'm there taking notes, I'm not saying a word of the meeting. I'm like, third year associate or second year associate or fourth year, per importe. And then here I am, like, just having the privilege of like being in this massive meeting with senior people. And that's what you do. It's observation. That's all you do. But even like much earlier than that, my dad, who's a businessman, he was a businessman, he passed now, but like he had no schooling. Like he left school extremely early on. He was so drawn by being in business, like he had that in his blood, like, this whole like trading and like, anyway, so he left school very early on, and I was very, very close to him. And then he would, when I was at a very early age, a very young age, spending so much time with him, every time and my mom too, but I spent a lot of time with my dad. And like he would always say something to me like not judging, but like appreciating someone that you meet. Like he was always very strong, sharing with me like oh, did you see this guy? Did you see, like, like, the way he is, like, and he would comment on, like, like, look the way he looks at us, like he's a like trustworthy man, or like, I wouldn't really trust this guy. Did you notice? He would my dad did not have the textbook, just to support his decision. He was, I would say, I guess you call it street smart, right? But very, very smart in my belief, anyways. And for him, this whole human dimension was so important. And, despite the fact, like, very old school man, like from a different generation, most definitely, and like working in construction and all that, so very different. But for him, this whole, like the hints and like what you could pick up from like the first minute with someone, he was so strong on analyzing it and creating a judgment for himself. And very often, me having the privilege of listening to him, he wanted me to pick that up. He wanted me to pay attention to that always, because he would often share that with me. Did you see this guy? Did you see this person? Or did you see? And trying to just almost lecture me on, like, the stuff you should pick up when you meet someone for the first time. So
I know you're really close, and I'm
Yes.
sorry to hear about your dad. I know we talked about that. That
Yeah.
makes me.
Yes.
I'm very sorry to hear that.
Yes.
What do you think it was, like, the bond that you guys had, the teaching, and all the things that he shared with you, like, and the time that you spent with him versus, look, we all love both our parents and all that kind of stuff, but there's one that we kind of crave their attention so much.
I don't know, Dwayne. Like, I mean, first of all, I've always been told at such an early age that I think physically, first of all, I look like him. Like, it starts there. And I know this, you can look like your dad and have zero connection with him, or like, not have anything going. But I was always told how much I looked like him. Like, all my life, like, oh my God, you look like him. You look just physically. Apparently, my face, I look like him and all that. Very difficult. Like, when you see, like,
I actually can't imagine.
yeah,
that. You must
exactly.
have been
I
really
know.
hot. You must
I know.
look great in a dress.
But I've always been told that, oh, you look so, like, you look like him. And we were, I was the youngest of, 4 kids. I was the youngest. I still am, I guess. And I don't know, I was sort of the unexpected kid that showed up when my parents were both in their 40s. So I was kind of a surprise baby to start with. And I don't know, we just had this connection where I was very, very close to my mom too, by the way. But like my dad, I don't know, we were always close. And like my mom would say, on stuff, you're the only one that can talk to him. Like very early on, like I was given the sort of responsibility that when there was stuff, my dad was a tough man, and like very demanding, extremely nice, kind-hearted, and so nice to everyone, and so generous and all that. But like he was a real business guy, and he was a tough negotiator, and like he was a tough man, like. And so when there was something that we wanted to tell him,
When he needed to be managed and handled.
yeah, more not on the business
Bring you
front, but
frost.
more like on the family, like, like, I don't know, something about like the Christmas evening or whatever it was. Like very often I was tasked with, talk to him, because with me things were relatively smooth. I never remember arguing very much with him, like, or vice versa. Like there was none of that. So extremely close to him. And I loved to spend as much time as I could with him. Like, he was very busy. He started a concrete business that is now managed, and by my brother, who took it to a completely, my brother André Bélanger took it at a completely different level. But still, back then, during the week, so my dad was very often away, because he was just like traveling for his business, which was all over Quebec. But then during the weekend, when he was back home, like Saturday morning, we'd go for breakfast together, and then we would be kind of driving around, like me on the passenger seat, obviously as a very young girl, and then him driving and telling me about everything and anything. Like this conversation, we would drive around town doing. Matan is a very small town; it's a 15,000 people town, so almost doing every single street every Saturday morning, and then telling me about different things. And so we got to be extremely close. And I don't know, we've always had this bound. And now a lot of people, I think we're kind of very much the same. like personality-wise, actually.
Did you ever feel like, and the reason why I'm asking this question, the reason why I'm sticking with this is like 100% of our listeners are either parents or will be parents. Well, maybe not 100%, but pretty close. Yeah, like 98%. But I'm curious about this as you're describing it, because it's funny, like when you said like, oh, I'd be in the passenger seat. I'm picturing you guys in a truck. And I had that picture before you even said it. Like I could see that. But my question is this, is like, and I guess this is like a little bit on the parenting side, and maybe you can reflect in the way you parent as well. But did you feel like he was like telling you or teaching you, or just more sharing and being kind of present and involving you? Like, because I think sometimes there's a difference when people parent.
I think behind the sharing, there was this idea that he should teach me stuff. Like, I'm pretty positive of that. Like, he wanted me to know stuff. I think my dad was, and my mom too. Like, I feel like I only talk about him, but like, I think they were very proud of their 4 kids. Like, I have 2 older sisters, I have a brother, and then there's myself. So I think they've always been extremely proud of the family. For them, the family has always been extremely important. And as both passed, actually, a few years ago, like, they told us how important it was to stay close as a family. Like, it's so important to them. And so I think there was this pride of like having these 4 kids, and but behind all that, I think they really wanted us to um, learn from them, and so as part of this conversation and the sharing and the spending time together, there was a lot of, I'm telling you, and you should listen, sort of.
Mm-hmm.
And I, and I've always welcomed that, actually. And I'm sure that I can speak for my other siblings. I've probably, and I hope for them that they've done the same thing with them. But for me, like, my dad and I spent a lot of time together, and he also spent a lot of time with my brother, because actually they were both in the same business together for many, many years. And I've never worked for the family business. I left at some point and I started to do something else. But so, I mean, they've got their own experience and their own relationship with him, I'm sure. But like, for me, it was great. And in everything I do, still today, the pride that I've got in showing up and trying to be and I'm not the best, but I try to be the best for what I can do, comes from that. It's the pride of showing up, and knowing that, it's a small town. Matan is a very small town, and you cannot be, you have to be true to who you are, and everyone knows you. You know everyone. They all know you.
You have a reputation.
You have a reputation,
integrity.
and you cannot just, there's this thing, you got to be authentic. Like, this is who you are. These are your parents. These are your brother, sister, and everyone knows you. So there's no kind of BS going around. Like, so you got to be true to yourself, and there was this element of pride. And I've carried that, and I still carry that, and I actually try to instill that in my daughters.
Well, I was just going to ask, that was going to be my next question, is how, and look, when we were growing up, things were different. I mean, and I'm not saying it's better, worse, or whatever, but it was just, there was a lot of there's a lot of technology now. There's a lot of things going on. There's a lot more, options, I think, too, for kids to get involved into things. How do you manage that? Even, and with the career and the, like, everything you've accomplished, and I know you're close with your girls, so I think it's worth hearing from you to say, like, hey, this is.
Well, first of all, like, nothing is perfect here. So I mean, I'm busy. I travel. I work pretty hard. At night, we've got either games. Like, I try to come to pretty much all the games that we play at the Bell Center. But I mean, all the shows, I cannot come to all the shows, but I select some events. We've got big festivals, and I'm very present and those festivals are usually during the weekends, day and night. So I'm not complaining. I'm just saying that this is what we do. And as the leader of the organization, I cannot not be, because this is the end product that we deliver to the fans. So I have to be there. But I love it. It's a privilege to come to a hockey game and say that you're working at a hockey game.
Yes.
But it's time that I don't spend with my kids. I'm separated, so my daughters, they spend 1 week with me and 1 week with their dad. But the week I'm with them, I'm trying to spend as much time as I can, but sometimes it's a challenge. I think they're 14 and 17 right now, and I think that, I mean, maybe this is me trying to feel good about the whole situation, but I think that they know what I do, And there's an element of pride that, you know, it was just my birthday, and they each wrote me a separate birthday card, and it's still with me in my wallet. Actually, I carry it around because the way they've expressed their birthday wishes to me was amazing, and because they're saying, you know, we're so proud of you, and you know, this is essentially the message that they're writing for me. And but they know that I'm not there sometimes, and they know sometimes it's tough, and they have to sort of, you know, organize themselves on their own at times. um, but but I think there's an element of pride in them knowing that their mom is doing this. But is it perfect? No. And if you try to attain perfection, then you're gonna be paralyzed, and you're not gonna be doing anything. But I try to spend quality time with them, and I try to, I mean, I have a lot of energy in life. I think that's really helping me. I do have quite a bit of energy, and so that allows me to. My life is not for everyone, I think, because people, they're like, "What are you doing?" And it's true, you know. Time is flying by too fast. I think that's the only problem. But there's not, you know, I can't control that. I do a lot of stuff. I'm busy. I'm involved into a variety of things, but I do have a lot of energy. But I don't know, it's not perfect. And I'll give you an anecdote which is so nonsensical, but it like it a bit epitomizes. It's like sometimes it's gonna be good, and sometimes it's gonna be pretty bad. So Juliette, my little one, she was in the kindergarten. This is probably like 10 years ago. And the the teacher at the, well, the lead at the kindergarten, like, it was like the start of the you know, even though it's kindergarten, there's a bit of a, there's a year, you know, September is kind of the start. And then so at the start they're saying, we get a note where the parents, they have to, it's recommended that you should bring a picture of the family. So it's like the mom, the dad, like, and then if the kid who's in the kindergarten, it's not even kindergarten, say come, like it's preschool.
It's like a pre-kindergarten.
Yeah, exactly. And so they're saying, you know, so that the kid feels like, you know, at home at the preschool place. So bring a picture of the family. Like, so for us, it was like the dad, myself, it was Margot, the daughter, and then Juliette. But I don't have time really to do this. And so finally, Margot, who's a bit older, decides that she's selecting a picture. So fast forward a few weeks down the road, I decide one day after work to go get Juliette. Like, I left work early, and I'm getting Juliette. And so as I'm walking into this little classroom, you open the door, and then there was a bit of a board, and all the pictures were pinned, right? All the kids. I see there was like 15 kids, so all the pictures were there. And then I happened to take a look at the board just while Juliette is getting ready to leave. And so it's all people, like it's families like apple picking, or they're on a boat, or like they're canoeing or whatever. And our family picture, which I've never got to select, it was so embarrassing. It's, first of all, Margot is not in the picture. Juliette is not in the picture. It's the dad and myself, and we are at a formal ball. I have like a gown, and he's wearing a tuxedo because my daughters, they love the dress I was wearing, which was kind of a fuchsia dress. Yeah. And so amongst all those beautiful, like, you know, homey pictures of, you know, family, it's me and Hubert, and he's wearing this tuxedo. I'm wearing this stupid outfit, which makes no sense for what is it that they're like trying to represent. Photo, yeah. It was so embarrassing. So but you gotta laugh at that, right? Mm-hmm. You gotta say, okay, like, but imagine all the parents showing up for weeks, looking at this board and seeing us, you know, dressed like this, making no sense. But so
thinking that you picked out the picture.
Exactly. We picked the picture, and this is us, you know, guys. This is how we want to show up as a family. Anyway, so it's nonsense like this, but mm-hmm. you gotta laugh. You gotta laugh.
Maybe just for explore for a minute here the feminine side of being in that situation, and we often talk about, you know, men have like one voice, and it's speaks really slow and it's very methodical, and then women have all these voices and, you know, everything going on. You know, in the most difficult of times in the career, developing the career and handling the children and separation and stuff, and we've all been there. How did you manage that? What did you learn from it? I don't want to say what advice, but what were the takeaways, and what were the things that when you look back at your, at your younger self, when the kids were, 10 years younger, what are the takeaways today that if you could tell people?
Like, what I'm trying to say here is that the decisions I've made 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, would I make those same decisions today? I mean, because time goes on, and then hopefully you become smarter with time, with time. I don't know. I mean, but I do believe that things do happen for a reason. Um, it's not always been great and perfect, around the separation. Like, it's very difficult. The most precious thing, anyways, that, again, to each their own, but for me, like, to be, yes, my family, which was in Matane, my parents, but my kids being in Montreal, 1 week out of 2 you're not with them, and so you're kind of, that was very tough. And but again, it is what it is. And fast forward to where we are now, I think it was the right decision in the circumstances. But it's not easy. But it's the again, maybe another family trait, I would say. It's the resilience, right? The resilience that, and I don't even know how I was taught that. Frankly, I like, if you ask me, like, do you remember something, or is there something that happened? But it was sort of the everyday back in my house, where, I don't know, it was, it's gonna sound a bit harsh, but, like, there was no space for us to complain. But it was a very loving family, and like a loving mom and dad and all that. But this thing about complaining was just not something, like, there was no space to complain about anything. Again, like, it's anecdotal, but, like, I'm on the phone with one of my friend, and there was, I mean, a Matan, essentially in Matan, um, to do something fun, like on a Saturday afternoon when you were like 12 years old, was to kind of walk to the shopping center and spend time at the shopping center and come back. Let's say it was like, there was no ski or no sports available, because it was like the month of October, let's say. And I remember telling this friend of mine, I said, "Oh, actually, I'm not going to go, because I have a cold, and I don't feel so well." So finish the conversation, hang up the phone. My dad is there, and he's like, "I swear to you," he's like, "Did you have to say you had a cold here?" I'm like, "What do you mean?" He says, "You could just have said you're not going, because you're not going. Why did you have to tell her?" And it was my best friend, Nicole. He's like, "Why did you have to share that you had a cold?" I'm like, "What's wrong with sharing it?" He says, "It's nothing wrong, but why would you have to say that? Just say that, you're not going." And I'm like, "Oh, okay." And it doesn't really, I don't even know why he said that to me, but, like, at the end of the day, I've always remembered that. And then, because it's my dad, and because I've respected him so much, and I so much looked up to him all my life, it's like, why do you have to give all these details? Just so I became that person. And it's not that you cannot share your emotion, or you cannot share, like, how you feel, but it's this way of being, like, almost bulletproof, resilient, where no matter what, you need. Is it good or bad? Like, I think hopefully it's good, because that's how I am. But it's like, carry on, man.
Yeah, well, there's an upside and a downside to everything. But I think, it's interesting that you tell that story, because I was, you have this unbelievable resilience. And I was kind of thinking earlier in our conversation, and then you dropped this story about, like, you don't make things. One thing I've noticed about you over the years is, like, you don't make things about you. You have this really unbelievable ability to be able to, not make things significant. You are the last person to, toot your own horn, and claim any type of win or victory, or being better than anybody else or anything like that. And then you tell us, like, you share that story, and it's like, that's really, for me, it's very interesting from the perspective of, early on, your dad taught you to let's not make this about you and your sickness. You're just not going to the mall.
That's it.
And then what it sounds like to me, but I don't want to put words in your mouth, But then it sounds like to me like this is a theme that you've carried on in your life, and I'm probably going to guess that you've shared with your children, with the girls, and so that they're not sitting there, crying about what they don't have or what mom's, that mom's not around, but they're appreciating that when mom is around and the time they do get, and that is like, because what was spinning in my head as you were talking earlier, what's wrong is always available.
Oh, yeah.
But so is what's right.
Yeah.
And it becomes
criticizing
a choice.
is the easiest thing. Criticizing is the easiest thing, right? It's so easy. Criticizing everything. But like, why don't we look at what's positive and all that? And I know it's not always rosy and perfect, I repeat, but then it is an attitude too. And again, back again at Stikeman Elliott, you learn very much earlier on that as a young attorney, if you start complaining that you're overworked and then this and that, and you spend the night at the office and it's so difficult, people don't want to work with you. I mean, do you want to work with someone who's kind of how are you doing? Like, do you want a positive? And again, it's not that we should live in a world which is fake and we should pretend that everything is great and rosy and perfect. It's not that, but like it's a work environment, it's a professional environment. Like, yes, we're human and there's only one of us, as we've said before, and we cannot, we have to be authentic to who we are, but at the same time, and it's the same thing at the Montreal Canadiens. You show up at work, it's positive. You're here with like now it's like you're the professional showing up at work. So like I'm not strong on the complaining thing, and even with people around me, like the whole complaining around me, even in this business here, like it's not something that I like actually, because yes, we could all complain, and there's a million things that are not great. Just coming from work, the road work in Montreal is terrible, and everyone talks about that actually in Montreal. But kidding aside, like you can show up at work with a positive attitude, or you can show up at work with like everything that is not going well and complaining. And it was true at Stikeman Elliott, and because at Stikeman, people will decide. Those senior guys will decide who they're putting on their files. And by the time I got to be a senior person at Stikeman Elliott and a partner, I would choose who I bring on my files. And I'm not going to bring those guys complaining, despite the fact that they're super bright. I'm going to bring those guys that are not only bright, but that are fun to work with. So it's all in the attitude. And again, I guess that's stemming from my family and how we, let's just go. Let's be positive about stuff.
I'm drawn back to a question that I kind of wanted to ask you earlier, because you had mentioned in our conversation when you were a junior lawyer, you would sit in a room and just, take notes and observe. And then, but one of the questions I had back then that I kind of, forgot to ask, but it's kind of coming back around here, is that like, where for you, either as an employer or leader, or back then as an employee, aspiring lawyer, growing up through an industry, is that where's that fine line between not boasting, but telling people what you're capable of, and or a showing and how to show, so that you don't get looked over.
It's interesting. Well, I think it's just getting it done, and people will notice. I think that if you get it done, and I mean, again, like we could take this conversation in many different ways, but like if you, I mean, it's interesting. I've never loved, like back as a lawyer, like I've never loved like the whole, like when you're a partner, you need to bring business in, like it's simple, right? And for me, my pride was to never, like, I would not want to drop a client because they were not happy with whatever myself and the team has done in terms of work. Like, so for me, it's like, give me a client, like, let me work with these people and they will be super happy. But going out there and trying to, boast and say why they should give me the work because I'm the best and this and that, I think I've never been good at that actually, because I don't like, I can sell stuff for sure. I can argue. I can do many different things. But when it's about me, selling me, I've never been good at that. I'm going to sell me by getting it done in the best possible way, and people will notice that part. about what I do. But being out there and trying to pretend and trying to boast, I've actually never liked that.
So in the getting it done statement, which I love, you know, there is no better way to show people that you deserve something
Yeah.
than performance. And it's
100%.
like, and that's what, like, it's interesting. Like, this
Yeah,
industry
this
that
is
you're
it.
in is like the Canadians, like, and which we'll probably talk about the rebuilding
And you
year.
can't hide, right?
Yeah,
You
you
can't
can't
hide.
hide. You
You
can't
can't
hide.
hide.
It's like
Yeah.
every day, whatever the
Yep.
sport is
Yeah.
you got to perform. But what do you think, like in business, are the chokeholds for people like that don't get it done? That kind of like, you're like, God, you got so much potential, but you create so many landmines for yourself. Like, what do you think those are? I'd love you to illustrate from your perspective over time what those are, so that listeners can go, you know, if I'm not getting what I really want out of my business, look, we're the first, this podcast, like, we talk about what business is. Just business is like life. What we do in business is a reflection of what happens in life, because business is all it is just a series of relationships and connections. And so I'm just really curious, like, the ones that perform versus the ones that do not perform. Where's the gap?
Well, I mean, it'd be so easy to draw a parallel on, like, like a pro team, be it like on the field, like on the ice, on the court, NBA or whatever. But I think talent is there. It's everyone is talented, everyone is able, and all that. But I mean, ultimately, the difference is like how much you want it. I think I really believe that it's how much you want it, and it's so easy to speak about like a pro sports team, because ultimately it's all about that. And yes, there's talent coming in. Some people are more talented than others, but it's interesting. This morning in the paper, I was reading an article. Brendan Gallagher, number 11, he's been with us for years. He's a terrific guy. He's assistant captain, and he himself was saying, I'm not the most talented guy. I'm not the tallest guy. He's 5'9", which is tall, but like for a hockey guy, Dwayne,
I'm
5'9", it's
I'm
tall.
not very tall.
It's tall. Dwayne, 5'9" is good.
I never walk around going, wow, man, am I ever tall?
No, but I mean,
myself in the mirror.
5'9" is good. 5'9" is good. But like as a hockey player, he's 5'9". He's about 30 years old, and but man, he's still around. He's always been around. And again, he's not the most talented, and he's not the guy to have like the lead in points in our team. But he was saying, and this was this interview, and he said, you know what? But I know, and I've known forever, that if I want to maintain myself on this team, I'm going to have to work harder than anyone else, because I'm not as talented. I cannot score goals from all the different various points. I'm going to have to be the scrapper. I'm going to have to be in front of everyone. I'm going to have to be the agitator. I'm just going to have to be there and to want more than anybody else. And that way I can, and then he's still with us, and that way I can justify the fact that there's a role for me in that team. And so back in business, I mean, usually we don't fight our way around physically, but it's like, and it maybe it's an easy answer, but it's very difficult to articulate. But it's how much do you want it? I think isn't it true for everything, right? How much do you really want it? How many times will people hear, it's not going to work, we can make it happen, chances of that happening are slim, we're not going to do it? It's so easy to hear no, or it's not going to work, or it's difficult, and then stop. It's such a good excuse to stop, because you've heard no, or you heard it'd be too difficult, and 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 sometimes I don't know if it's a fault of mine, but I don't want to hear no. And it's funny because my brother Andre and I, we've got this reference, is like, if you hear no, it's this is when the real work starts, and we're smart, and there's stuff that doesn't work to what I've just said, but usually we're not gonna, I mean, as far as I'm concerned, to me, no does not really work. Why is it no? Like, what are we gonna do? Like, how can we turn this into a possibility? And I think that's a very, like, if like people that know me very very well would say that about me, like I'm just never gonna accept like a no just like that. Why? Can we see it differently? Can we do it differently? Can we come about it by a different road? Like, yeah. So it's wanting it.
I was actually just thinking, like, I could just imagine, like, I can't imagine me working for you and going to you and going, no, we can't do that. I'd be like, I would be too afraid to say that to you.
No, but like people know, it's like, oh no, like, and people that are working with me as the team, we very much have a team, right? In the commercial here, but it's very much our culture. Just get it done, and there's the element of pride too. We can do this, guys. We can do this together. I mean, the stuff we do here as a group, like, most people would say, no, we cannot do this. We're not going to be able to deliver that. No, no, we can. We can do this. We've got the best people in this organization, and we've got the means. So why not?
I want to draw attention to a statement you made here that, and I want to make sure I got the quote right. But what I wrote down was, when I hear the word no, I think you used your brother too
Yeah,
in that.
yeah, yeah.
When
This is when it starts.
you hear the word no, that's when the work
The real work starts.
The
Yeah,
real work starts.
it's true.
Like, it is like, is that your own quote? Like, you should somebody should put that somewhere. Like, that should show up like with next to Warren Buffett's famous quotes. Honestly, like, it's
No, it's true. When you think of it, it's true.
so, as a leader, because you mentioned the word culture. The culture is, I think you said, get it done.
Yeah.
How do you shift that? Like, so for the person right now that's listening to this podcast or watching it on YouTube, whatever, you should watch it on YouTube because the really cool Montreal Canadiens stuff in the background, it's awesome. But who's going like, yeah, I have this, like, I don't have the culture I want in my business. Like, I don't, or in my life or what, but it's like, how do you shift that? I mean, you guys have gone through a pretty major shift here, actually. But how do you shift that culture as a leader? How do you drive it? What's the mechanism for you? Because this is happening in people's organization. And I'm interested in hearing, like, where do you think that problem begins? Where does it end? And then how do you correct it?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I think it's a very complex.
We have time.
I know we have time, but
No.
it's not easy.
I know.
And I think that this culture thing, like, everyone talks about that, and it's culture is super important, and culture is kind of your northern star that kind of helps make decision when it's strong enough. It should guide you in terms of decision making on a bunch of stuff, right? Ultimately, when it's strong enough, but it's not that easy. And I believe that in organization, culture shifts too. It depends on who's leading the organization. It depends on where is the organization coming from, where it's headed. In this case, we have actually a real owner. We're not a publicly traded company. There's an owner here, and the culture starts. I also believe that it's very much toned at the top. So the culture starts with our owner because he is the top, and it's his tone kind of coming through us that we all try to push forward. So I believe that it's one thing to try to establish a culture. It's one thing. It's another thing to try to have people adhering to the culture. It's difficult. It's difficult. And and then how do you, and when you have roadblocks, when there's people that are not abiding by it, like, what do you do, and how do you get them on board, and then how much do you try? And so it's all of that, right? It's actually very, very, it's not easy. But here, first of all, we are into the business of, like, I can guarantee you one thing, Dwayne, tonight at 7:09 the puck will drop. No matter what happened here today, like, no matter what, it's gonna happen. It's televised. It's part of a larger organization, which is called the NHL. And there's a game tonight, and it's happening no matter what. So it's this culture too of we are into the event business and it's gonna happen. So this train is moving, and it's either you're on the train and you're moving with it or you're not. But like there's no way around it. And so the framework is clear to all. And it's the same thing. Last night here at the Bell Center, we had a band called Mumford and Son, and no matter what, at 9 o'clock, this band was going on stage and it was playing. And we had like 15,500 people here for the show. So fine. So we're very much into it's happening. Like it. So no matter what, it's happening. So you need to go with it. So there's nothing tonight that will prevent this game from happening. So it's happening. There's going to be zero no along the way. It's going to be yes all the way, and it's happening. So the culture is already a culture of it's happening no matter what. Like there's no way around it. Right. And it's clear to all, because it's not as if like we're not gonna do it. So there's very much that. So we are into this culture of things will happen and the show will go on, and then it's a must, So people working here gets it, because that's what, when you sign on the piece of paper, you sign on for that. But then it's more delicate than that. And it's everything we do and how we get to that point, and how feasible things are, and the level of excellence we want to put forward. I mean, we can, how is, like, if we go into the specifics of our operations, like tonight there's going to be this puck drop, and we know every single one of us here, we know that people are here to watch a hockey game. That's fine. But then over and above that, how do we make sure that when they come to the Bell Center here in Montreal, not only are they witnessing a hockey game, and we know that that's the number one reason why they're here, but at the same time, we, on the commercial front, want to make sure that it was much better watching this game from the Bell Center than from your living room. Mm-hmm. We need to convince people, because then they have to fight, winter, they have to find snow, traffic, lack of parking, whatever it is.
Yeah, there's a lot of reasons not to come to a
game. There's a lot of reasons to stay home, right?
Comfy at home.
Yeah, exactly. So why is it that we're going to convince 21 people to actually leave, come here, get into their seat, buy the ticket also along the way, which is a high price item, mm-hmm. and come here? Well, because it's the experience. It's the over and above watching the game that you can watch because it's televised. What is it that we're going to deliver to these guys here in terms of hosting, welcoming people, hospitality, the food and bev we're going to be offering them, but most importantly, the game experience, what we call like the game presentation, the music we're going to play, how people will get excited. And the goal here is that it's got to be way more exciting to be sitting at the Bell Center in your seat in terms of your emotion, your connection to what's going on, and feeling part of something. It's got to be way more interesting than watching from home. Otherwise, people would watch from home. And so, and for our hockey team, they need the fans. Like, they really need the fans. And, when they say, sometimes people may think it's some sort of a record that they're playing, but when our players are saying that we've got the best fans in Montreal and that the fans made a difference in a game, they're not lying. They believe it.
Yeah, you guys probably have
like we have
the most passionate
the fans.
Philadelphia is pretty tough too. Like, I don't know about the hockey, but I know on their football side is. It's like if you were winning in Montreal, you are a legend. If you were losing in Montreal, it's tough. Well, it's really tough to walk the streets.
So it's that culture of you get it done, and there's I believe that with like the team history, the legacy, 24 championships, we're working on the 25th. There's the expectations are very, very high, and we're not gonna, like, I will never accept, and same for our owner, we're never gonna accept not to deliver at that level. Sometimes are there things that are not, like, it could happen that some things doesn't work perfectly and then we fix it, but there is this level of excellence that we want to live up to because we're the Montreal Canadiens. We will never accept, it's kind of not even an option to not deliver at the level we want to deliver. And so that's when, like, a no is never working.
We've covered a lot here in culture, but I've got, top down, getting people adhere to the whole, mission and it's interesting, sport and military. I've interviewed a lot of people, and I've got a lot of friends, especially in the Navy SEALs. And, it's like, look, we're getting on that helicopter, and that helicopter is dropping us into a hot zone, and shit is going to happen.
Yeah.
And so
That's why.
we're going.
Yeah.
But it's very similar to in your situation where it's like, listen, at 7:09, that puck is going to drop. It's like, it's going to happen, guys. So,
matter what.
you know, get going, because, and it's interesting because sometimes I think, you know, in that environment, or if I'm a listener, is what I was thinking is like, if I'm a listener, it's like, well, yeah, okay, but we don't have that. Like, we're in the, you know, we're in, but they'll use the excuse. They do have it, but they'll use the excuse of, well, we're in the restaurant business. Well, guess what? At 6:00 p.m. or 5:30 or whatever, people are walking in the door, and it's going to happen. Like, the doors are going to be open, and it's going to happen. You're going to have a customer. You're going out to that customer, whatever. If you're in the plumbing business, the landscape business, the automobile industry, like, you've got customers, and it's going to happen. And sometimes I don't know if they take that level of urgency.
But that's right, and it's the standards you're trying to achieve. It's the level of urgency. Do it, do we accept excuses or not? And again, it's very important, and I'm going to add to this. We're all allowed to make mistakes. Let's say it, and again, and I do believe it. I mean, preferably we don't make mistakes, but I mean, my point is, I accept that there's going to be stuff that will be missed, or like, you know, and I was talking about excellence before, and you know, we aim for that, and we drive and we strive for that. But I mean, at the same time, given the number of decisions that we make here on a yearly basis, given all the events we do, and again, like, we don't do open heart surgery, right? Like, I want to specify that we're into the events business. It's fun, it's exciting, it should be like uplifting. But with the number of things that we're doing, there's going to be, and again, as I said before, things have to happen. When we do like this festival called Oshiaga, that is led by, you know, my entertainment team here, like, no matter what, there's going to be 45 to 50,000 people showing up for this event, like on that Friday night. So it's going to happen. Like, no matter what, like, at some point, some people will be on stage and the music will work. It's got to work. So my point is, the train is rolling. We have to make things happen, because that's our promise to the fans, the festival goers, or whatever. But along the way, we make so many small decisions, big, medium decision. There's going to be mistakes. And here, the culture also is that it's okay. Like, I mean, we don't want to always get it wrong every day of the week, all the time, but it's okay to make mistakes. It's very okay to make mistakes, but we need to know about it, and we need to fix it. Don't hide it. Don't hide it. Don't hide it. Let's go. Let's talk about that. Let's fix it. Let's move on. Because, see, it goes fast. But let's just, I mean, mistakes, I prefer a mistake to an excuse. A mistake is a mistake. I make mistake. Let's move on with the mistake. Let's fix it. Let's learn from it, and let's advance. An excuse, when it, you know, we stop because we found ourselves some excuses. No, like, that doesn't really work.
This is great though, like, because I've written excuses now at least 2 or 3 times. You had said a question, you know, do we accept excuses? And I'm going to rephrase that question to the listeners right now, and say to them, now would be a good time to hit pause. Like, not right now after I ask the question, is after I ask this question, hit the pause button and write down 3 of these. But what excuses are you currently accepting inside your business? And hit the pause button, write 3 of those down. Because to France's point here, it's like, it's these excuses that we accept. And sometimes I find, I think I do this, but like, we'll make an excuse sometimes, whether it's in our personal life and our, you know, fitness, or our business, or our relationships, or whatever that looks like. But we'll make an excuse because, you know, well, it's always been like this, or, oh, well, this has always been a problem, or, this is a struggle, or this person is, you know.
We've always done it this way.
Yeah.
So why change? We've always, that's such a comment. Yeah, but we've always done it this way. Okay, well, why don't we change? Why don't we try to make it better? Why don't we try to improve on it? Why don't we try to, why making it this way again? And again, and I'm like, it's very easy for me, Dwayne, to be sitting here with you and to talk about that, like, notionally, but like, on a day-to-day, like it's not always easy to have this attitude of like, and sometimes like people find it tough, right?
How
Because
how do you keep your compass on true north on that stuff? Like where for you as a leader, like look, there's good days, there's bad days, there's days where you put your head in your hands and you're like, oh my God. Like how do you what do you do to kind of manage yourself in those situations? Or even manage yourselves from like not getting into those situations?
I'm very close to our owner, so we talk about stuff a lot. Like we are in constant conversation, about everything that's going on in the business. And Jeff is a very, very good sounding board, very calm, extremely calm and collected. So it starts there, I believe. And it starts with the trust that exists at that level. And so that's so important, right? That I know that I have his back. That's so important. And in return, I believe that he knows that I will always, in my own ability, trying to make the best decision for this organization with always organization first. What's the best decision for the organization? Like, and and that is fundamental. What's the best decision for the organization here? How are we going to be better off after this decision in terms of the organization? Never something that is personal or never something that is advantaging someone. It's always what's best for the organization. And I think that he knows that this is how I operate. So the trust is there and we talk all the time. And then afterwards, myself, I have a lot of people that are I cannot say it enough. This is not a one person solo show here.
Yeah.
Like people around me are amazing. I have amazing people that I speak to every day, that I rely on. And it's funny because we're dealing with something right now, and we always say to ourselves, okay, so we have this first conversation, and then we talk about that, and then we say, okay, park it. Let's talk about that again tomorrow to see how our thinking has evolved on something that is, let's say, delicate. And I'm so grateful to be surrounded by amazing people where I can actually bounce ideas, share, and then I think yeah, we are this organization has an amazing leadership group, and it keeps you on the right track. It keeps you energized. It keeps you motivated to always, and it takes courage too, right? Because it's easy to try to take decision to be popular and to be liked, and I want to be liked. By the way, I think I don't know of any individual, like we all want to be liked. We want to be liked by our colleagues, by our family, friends. We want to be liked. We want to be liked by the media in our situation, right?
Yeah.
But sometimes the best decision is not the decision that will be such that as a result you're going to be liked, because and it takes courage. And I believe that this is where sometimes people, when you find people around you that are willing to make those decisions that are in the best interest, let's say, of the organization, well, stay close to these guys because it takes courage. Some people don't have the courage. They prefer to make a decision that will be less controversial, but might not be in the best interest of the organization they're working for, but it's less controversial. Or it's a decision that will be such that people will think that he or she has made the right decision. But is it the best decision for the organization they work for? I don't know. Here, we try to make the best decision for the organization all the time. But when you make the decision, you rely on, okay, what do we know? What are the facts that are there that we know? And in 6 months from now, maybe the facts will be different. But today, in October of 25, what is it that we know? And what's the best decision based on what we know right now? So let's go with that. But it's tough.
I love the relationship, it sounds like, that you have with Jeff. And I love how you are putting it to Jeff. I'm sure if Jeff was in this seat across from me, he would be saying, France has courage and she leads with this courage. And so I want to make that point that this is not, Jeff absolutely has a lot to do with this, but you are leading this organization with courage. And, I had written down when you were talking about courage, I wrote down, I wrote the word courage, and then I wrote courage versus fear, and fear shows up as easy. And everybody hates the label of fear. Like, oh, I'm not afraid of anything. I'm not afraid of this. I'm not afraid of that. I'm not afraid of having that conversation. Well, then why didn't you have the conversation? Like, why, and you had talked about, and then you said courage versus intervene. Not intervening is a level of fear, and fear shows up as easy. Right. And so I'm making this point for the listeners.
Yeah, fear shows up also as an excuse.
As an excuse. Yeah. And so for those of you who are struggling with this in your business or in your life, this conversation is unbelievably powerful. And I'm curious, like, actually, this just popped into my head, but is like, how do you define courage? Because I think sometimes people see courage as like, well, I'm not courageous. Like, I don't run into a burning building, or I don't, I haven't been in the military. It's like, that's not what this is about.
That's not what it is. Yeah. No, it's not. No.
But I'm curious on your definition. Thanks for listening. I appreciate you being with us. If you found value in the show and know a friend or a coworker who could benefit from the conversation, please share the link via text or on social media. Remember, each share creates a ripple effect of knowledge and inspiration. We'll see you next week.
The views, information, or opinions expressed by guests during the Dwayne Kerrigan Podcast are solely those of the individuals involved and do not necessarily represent those of Dwayne Kerrigan and his affiliates. Dwayne Kerrigan or the Dwayne Kerrigan Podcast is not responsible for and does not verify the accuracy of any of the information contained in the podcast series. The primary purpose of this podcast is to educate and inform. Listeners are advised to consult with a qualified professional or specialist before making any decisions based on the content of this podcast.